Welcome back. This is episode 12 of Trials Talk podcast. As always, if you're watching the video, please like and comment and subscribe and do all that good stuff. As you can see, we have another guest on tonight. This is Brian Higgins, Trial GB Series Manager, or outgoing Series Manager, unfortunately. So we will get round to asking Brian a few questions later on, but we have X-Trial Madrid, which happened at the weekend. There, it's just passed, so we will do a quick synopsis of what happened there. Obviously, it was penultimate round of the championship, so all Tony had to do was finish, I think, in the top 6 or something ridiculous. Which, let's face it, he was never really going to finish outside of the top 6, was he?
No.
That was fairly nailed on. Bit of a battle for second place between Marcelli or Marseille. I don't know how you pronounce it. We have this every time. For second place in the trial, second place in the championship. And obviously, I don't know if anybody follows us on our social media, Facebook and Instagram. If you don't, please do. We do a prediction for each round, and we predicted Toby Martin on the podium. So, excellent. Hugo, what did you reckon?
I have to admit, I've been pretty busy. I was away at the weekend, so I haven't actually watched the whole thing.
Right.
I'll own up to that. But from what I've seen, that bike seems to work a lot better for Toby. From what I've briefly spoke to him, I think it's a proper bike. So it's good to see him get that factory support for me.
Yeah. It just looked like he had the confidence to really attack stuff. And I think that was borne out in the result, really.
It just looked like it was a lot easier to ride. Like, I know I watched a YouTube video that Toby did when he was riding with Bo. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
But like the bikes just sound the same now, whereas before it was totally different. So maybe hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
Yeah. Brian?
Like you say, I think it's given him the confidence to throw it up the steps now, because we all know it's about confidence. And if you've got the bike between your legs with the power, and he's a confident rider. You know, he doesn't care. He'll chuck it at anything.
Yeah. Before, I think he was chucking it where it didn't want to go a bit. It seemed like at times, isn't it? But hopefully it's all for the job.
No, excellent, great to see, and hopefully that support will continue into next season. Because I think the way he started out this season, it was all looking so good, and then unfortunately it turned pretty bad very quickly. But yeah, so anyway, Gabriel Marcelli, whatever, had a brilliant ride, took it to the last section of the final, which is again really good to see. I don't know about Busto. I think he's kind of, the championships are sort of were more or less decided, and I think he's just checked out for the season. He's just I don't really stand a chance, so I'm out. See you.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, he seems to have that sort of mentality when it's all going well for him. That's it. He's on it, and he's a bit more focused, but he seems to be a bit flaky, maybe.
It seems like he needs that motivation of like the chance of being at the top, doesn't
he? Yeah.
I'm not sure he's hungry enough.
Yeah, no. I think I would agree with that, Brian. Yeah, I think Marseille could probably surpass him in the outdoor championship next year. Well, that'd be an interesting little battle there to see how that goes. Obviously, fingers crossed, Toby will be up there too. Maybe, you never know. Right. Anyway, so Tony Bow, when he obviously won the trial, won the championship. That's his 17th consecutive indoor championship, 17th consecutive outdoor championship this year. So, yeah, the domination continues, which is incredible. Really, but
struck home to me when you think he had that T-shirt with 34 on it. It's 17 of both, like consecutively.
Consecutive. Yeah, incredible.
How he carries on every year.
Yeah.
Well, I think he'd got bored and taken up knitting or something by now, wouldn't he?
Knitting? I'm not sure. Not sure you'd get the same buzz. Anyway. Right. Okay. So that's indoor X-Trial Madrid dealt with. There's next final round of the championship is this weekend. Again, it's in Vendée, I think, in France. So we'll do a prediction on Saturday on the we'll see what we can come up with this time. I think we're going to predict Toby on the podium again. I think that's we'll go for that. We'll go for that. Anyway, right, Brian. Welcome along. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy retired schedule to come along and join us. Obviously, viewers of this channel will best know you as series manager for TrialGB, but that is not the only thing that you have done involved in motorcycling. So, give us a sort of a brief overview of how and when you got involved in motorcycling and where it's all sort of gone from there.
It goes back a long time, Russell. That does actually. When I was 15, there was no youth trials then, but I started riding a year earlier than I was supposed to. Progressed through centre trials, done nationals, then British championships, done a few world championships, and then I was lucky enough to ride for Suzuki and have the first PE Suzuki that ever came into the country and rode it in the 6 days. They liked my attitude, so I then switched to Suzuki riding trials and motocross and enduros at that time, all bikes from Suzuki. But then I had a fairly bad injury when I was 33 and decided to pack up while the going was good before the slippery slope got too slippery. Really, that sums that up. Then got involved in organising events, primarily motocross and enduros, and became chairman of the ACU in 2010, pledged that I would only do it for 2-3 year periods, which I stuck to. So retired from that at the end of 2016, coincidentally sold my business about the same time, then started looking around for things to do. Jake at G2F was fairly quick off the mark to get me to manage the World Championship in 2018. And we all know the scenario there. Then I could see that the British Championship at the time was not quite in the place that it perhaps should be for a prestigious ACU Championship. So contacted the committee chairman then, John Collins, and said, would they like some help with it? And then I'd done that for 5 years. And that sums it up, really.
Wow.
I wouldn't have believed it was 5 years you've been doing that, Brian. Fair play.
Yeah. 2019, 20, 21, 22 and 23. Yeah. Time goes quick.
Yeah.
So rolling that clock back then, you competed in trials, motocross, enduro, everything?
Yeah.
Back in the day when I'm guessing
primarily trials.
Right.
Rode the ISDE for the British team twice.
Right.
With the trophy team, we finished, I'm not sure if it was 3rd or 4th in Austria, got a gold. Oh. That was best result. It was easier to mix the disciplines back then, really.
Yes.
And I was lucky to pick up bikes.
Disciplines weren't so specialized back then. It was
no. As long as you could ride a motorbike half decent, you could get away with a lot of things, really. I mean, when I started, I was naive. Boy, was I naive when I first went into the first 6 days trial. Couldn't really change a tyre. When I got there, it was dear old Reg May that taught me through changing a tyre at the first event.
And what age would you have been then when you rode the first 6 day?
20, 21 maybe.
Right. Okay.
Well, I could work it out. Born in 53, and that was in 22.
22.
Yeah, my first one was in the Isle of Man.
What bike were you on there, Brian? First 6 days.
What bike?
Yeah.
A Jawa, actually. Do you want a quick, interesting story or not?
Go ahead. Absolutely. Yeah. Crack on.
I can tell it now because it's so long ago. I had a 250 Jawa on the Monday. Quite a good bike, heavy as hell, but the gearbox was on the way out straight away. And no way was it going to finish the week. But luckily for me, Nick Jeffries broke a collarbone that day on his 360 Jawa and was out of the race. And strangely enough, when I turned up in the Parc Fermé on the Tuesday morning, my bike felt a lot more like a 360 than it did a 250.
A little bit more go in that.
Yeah.
Power to weight was a bit better.
Yeah.
They must have just got the carburation right or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it was. I'm sure that's what it was. So that's 6-day enduro. Have you ever done? You've done the 6-day trial, Scottish?
Yeah, several times. Yeah.
And what year did you first do that then?
On the Honda, couple of years on a Bultaco, couple of years on a Honda, and then Suzuki, and then when the slippery slope came in, many of you listeners won't know about this. The Gory, the green Gory.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was basically a green Bultaco.
No, green SWM.
Oh, green SWM. Yeah,
year-old SWMs.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
Yeah. Wow, that's a while back.
82. That was last time I rode the Scottish was 83, I think.
So the first time you rode it, then did it start in Edinburgh still?
Yeah. I've done some road trips from Edinburgh across. Yeah. Just glad to get onto Rannoch Moor, let alone get off it.
I know, and we sort of don't really. I mean, you know, Hugo and I have done Scotland a few times recently, and it's a really enjoyable event now. It's not the sort of in test of endurance, perhaps that it maybe was. You know, times change, and the bikes have become more specialized than everything else, so they've had to adapt, and I think they've done it very well. But yeah, I can appreciate getting on a bike in Edinburgh and having to ride to Fort William. That I don't think that would be fun, especially
the worst thing was on the Saturday going back again, because the final section was at Tyndrum. Most of you know where Tyndrum is.
Oh
when
yeah,
you there.
Yeah.
Then no more sections from there back to Edinburgh. Long ride, trying to nurse the
just nursing it down the road. Yeah. Fancy that, Hugo?
Yeah, imagine that to finish a week off.
Yeah, it's not exactly the run from Town Hall Bray back to the Parc Fermé.
No, not quite as enjoyable.
Settle for that one. Right.
That depends what you had on Town Hall Bray, though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
How enjoyable the ride back was.
Yeah. So then, would that have been in mid 80s? Roughly, you made the switch from sort of competitor to more organizational side of things.
Yeah, drifted into it really. Yeah.
And what was that? Just like doing local club motocross and trials and whatever.
Di and I started our own club, and youth British motocross championships were a bit low and not many of them, so we organised a round each year down here and just built it from there. Then we done the couple of British Championship Enduros with the Torridge Club. Then we organised 2 Millennium British Championship Enduros in Wales, which was a nightmare because like travelling to Wales to get it all prepared. It was a 75-kilometre lap as well. 2 special tests. We were one of the first ones to do 2 special tests. So, but we had fun. And I had my son Si then as well, which most people know. He unfortunately died in 2013, but we had good times together.
Yeah,
I bet that was good.
Yeah, it's nice when you can do something, you know, when you can work together like that. And I'm sure you've got a lot of good memories as well.
Oh yeah, and some stories as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Not for here.
No, but probably not for this. No. Yeah. So, we'll come on to the British Championship, I think, last, because that's probably the most recent thing. Obviously, yes, you were involved with Jake, I think, with the Sport 7, was that what his enterprise was called? Yeah, when he promoted the world round for a couple of years. Other events that you've promoted then in between times. I know you're the classic motocross is a big one for you.
Yeah, the Farley Castle event used to be called the Vets Motocross of Nations, but now we call it Farley Castle Vets Motocross. Huge event, logistical nightmare, full-time job, organising it. Di works on it from February the 1st right through each year. But like we've done that since 2010 now, so we're trying to get out of that while still keeping it to the same tradition that it is, and getting somebody to come on and take it on.
So you're still doing that now, Brian, as well?
Yeah.
To this day, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, done it each year apart from COVID year. We've missed out. Yeah.
And I mean that, as you say, I mean that has grown almost exponentially over the years. I mean, you've got like a who's who of 90s and early 2000s Grand Prix racing turning up to do that. Now I know Gordon Crockard goes over every year to ride it with a Northern Irish team. So I mean that has been hugely successful. Would you ever think of doing something like that for trials, like a classic trial?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they kind of do that now anyway, but it's not really the same thing.
Yeah. Even got speaking to Jake about it 3 or 4 years ago, and I had a venue lined up to do it actually, but logistically it didn't work, and COVID put it on the back burner. And a lot has happened since that. Di and I have got older, probably got a bit wiser, that we don't want that sort of commitment. But there's other events going on now with the vintage trophy and that sort of thing, that it's the wrong time to start doing it, because when you're putting a lot of money into these events, and like I'll openly tell you, that Farley Castle event cost a fortune to put on, make people's hair curl, but you need the quantity of riders to do it, and I'm not sure they're out there at the moment to travel across the water to here when there are other events in Europe.
Yeah. The classic scene in Europe is huge. I mean, there's that Costa Brava,
Costa Brava one, isn't it?
Coming up next week or next weekend or something. But I mean, any weekend pretty much you'll see results coming up there on social media from classic trials here, there, and everywhere. Yeah, I know. I was involved with a club here for a while, and we actually looked at trying to do a sort of classic trial the nations. This is about, I don't know, about 10 years ago probably. Trying to sort of do that same sort of idea, like a trial the nations, but old bike, you know, the back in the day riders, back in the day bikes, in the venue where the Hearst Cup used to take place back in the sort of 70s. Yeah, well, the lead mines and the Clandyboy estate, but the Clandyboy estate just didn't want to know about it. So that would have been, because I think back in 1975, the first world round was, I think, in Bainbridge. That was the first world championship, the first year of it, and the second round would have been up there in Clandyboy estate, up around Helen's Tower, which is literally, I could ride a mountain bike to it in 10 minutes from where I live. It's brilliant. You can still see all the old sections. It's class.
I know my way around there quite well, because I'd done that 2 or 3 years minding for Rob Sargent.
Yes, that would and it was an old school, really old school type venue. You know, big muddy climbs and bomb holes full of mud, and mud over the seat and everything. Cracker,
and the rock outcrops as well.
Yeah. Up by the tower itself. Yeah, there was some quite big, and then over in the old lead mines part, there'd have been quite a few bits of rockery and stuff. Yeah, all good. Right. So, what was the? I know you said earlier there that you'd sort of looked at the British Championship and seen that it was in a bit of a sort of a decline, almost, probably fair to say. So what was your sort of initial thought there? Because you changed the format of the championship, you made it look sort of quite different. Was that something that you brought forward, or was that a discussion you had with the committee? Or
no, it was me that particularly rebranded it ACU TrialGB, because at the time the British Championship wasn't in the best of places, because it was very broken and not consistent with rounds and that sort of thing. Maybe looking in hindsight, that wasn't a bad thing to have different types of events, but just to try and get consistency into it and to raise the profile and to get sponsors on board, it was my idea to call it ACU TrialGB, and the Trials and Enduro Committee at that time were quite happy with that, and we fairly quickly formed a successful partnership where there was trust both ways, and they let me get on with it a fair bit and talk to sponsors and just chip away at it and just try and raise the standard a little bit, really, and consistency. That's the thing I was trying to do, was to make sure that riders knew what they were getting 8 times a year, or however many rounds it was.
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say you smashed that out of the park. It was it's a pretty impressive turnaround. I mean, I've only really sort of been maybe in the last 2 or 3 years to watch the British Championship, and I know from watching them previously, it's night and day different.
Yeah, especially probably like the last 3 years, once you really got into it, you see the branding, and the caliber of event it was like night and day difference to what it was before. So it's been much more enjoyable to ride. You get much more spectators there at every event, don't you? So
yeah, no, it's been very.
I've got to thank the organising clubs for that, because without the clubs, you haven't got a championship. So it took them a little while to understand how I wanted to work. And it helped when I was doing the site visits, like roughly 2 months before each event, because we could have all the discussions and, for want of a better word, get all the shit out of the way then. And then we have the right way forward.
Yeah. That's one thing I don't know if I can jump in there. Just so for each event, what does that entail for you then, Brian? So for each round of the British Championship?
Well, basically set up with the organisers the date and the venue and that sort of thing, get the regulations, but then keep talking to them, and roughly, especially on new events, 2 to 3 months before the event, do a site visit. Not so much to look at the sections, get a feel of the sections and that sort of thing. I mean, I've worked with your dad, Hugo, up at the farm. Yeah. But then just to establish that we're all on the same sheet as to how it's going to happen on the weekend, and we all know what we're doing, what they're doing, how they're going to lay the sections out with the tape and that sort of thing, and where everything's going to be. And it seems to have worked quite well, and clubs have taken to it generally.
Yeah. Like you say, me and Dad mainly worked with you for the Havering one. It works pretty well from what we thought. So, is there anybody who does that sort of a mediation of the section severity and stuff, or is that down to the clubs and yourself?
Well, that's one of the reasons that I got thinking towards the end of last year, hey, do I want to carry on with this? Because I have a fairly good idea of what's required in the sections for different classes of riders and what they can do these days. And it was really frustrating for me going into some events, and clerks of the courses put a hell of a lot of work into it and thought into it. But when I know 100% that the sections, taken them in all, 12 of them, aren't going to work for a trial, that I can't get them changed, or I haven't got the authority. You need like a Geordie Pasquette in the championship, really. But the trouble is then, I don't mind when I can't change them. But when I get all the flack at the end of the event, and all I can do is shrug my shoulders and say, well, it ain't my fault, it's not the way I wanted it to be, really.
No, that's... Yeah. It would seem sensible if you were had a role, like you say, like a Geordie Pasquette type thing that went to each one, wouldn't it? And like you say, to get that consistency round on round then as well.
Generally, 90% of the guys got to go to work on a Monday morning. Yeah. They don't need to be crashing and, you know, costing money with bikes and injuries, really. And I can tell when sections are too hard. I really can't tell.
Yeah, I think particularly, probably more so for the expert grade. I think because obviously the riders are, well, they're not really supposed to have a minder. Obviously the riders can mind for each other or whatever if there's something particularly. But I think for that grade as well, you really need to try and it's trying to encourage, you know, new people to try the championship and everything else. So I think that particularly that grade needs to be right.
But I spent 5 years begging, I choose that word, begging some clerks of the courses to ease some of the sections on the expert route, because it's basically supposed to be 3 hard, 3 medium and 3 easy. The 3 easy ones or 4 easy ones need to be almost gimme sections that, you know, anybody can do really, but they weren't there, and that doesn't encourage riders to come into the championship. And so often we've seen riders come in, test the championship, and they've even said to Di when they're leaving or when they retired, sorry, but it's not for me. So that's never going to build up the championship. And like Thorpe and I have had the conversation so often, and Brad Bullock, and to a certain degree Emma, like, sorry guys, if you're finding it too easy, maybe you're in the wrong class. If I can get them around for between 10 and 20 marks, I'm happy, because the 15th bloke is still up around 50 or 60.
Exactly.
That's the trouble, isn't it? It's got to be an access route into the championship, but it's going to naturally be tight at the top then, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's what it takes to win that class, I suppose. So
it's a bit of a tightrope, isn't it, to walk that one? But I think, as you say, I think if the top guys, particularly in that class, I think if they're sort of losing in around 10, maybe 15, 20, maybe, that's probably about right. And then, you know, you're not killing the guy who's sort of propping up the results.
The 15th guy doesn't need to be any more than 50 or 60.
Yes. Yeah. That keeps it good fun for everybody then, and maybe encourages people to come back. But I think
and spectators don't want to see riders crashing all the time. They want to see riders showing off their skill, especially the top riders.
Yeah, and when you've got 30, 40 riders in that class now, the 15th guy is of a high caliber, really, because it's the upper end, isn't it?
Yeah,
scoring points is not easy.
No. And even, I mean, we've talked about it before on the channel. The Trial 2 Championship at a world level and at the British level is probably the most competitive championship in terms of the spread of marks from first to last, or whoever it is. And I know from speaking with Josh Hanlon on you know, about how did it go at the weekend or whatever, you know, and he's had one bad 5 maybe, and it's dropped him probably 5 places. So I mean, but that's what you want, that level of, as you said, what was it you said in the last episode? The trial's there to be won and not there to be lost.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that was it. That's, I think, as a rider, that's kind of what you want,
especially in the Trial 2. Yeah, you want to be able to go out and sort of gain your marks back rather than be too afraid to like go around and lose a little dab somewhere, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the difference, maybe.
Yeah, but I've got the winning marks here for Trial 2 this year. The average winning mark in Trial 2, the average would have been 57 marks.
Right, that's quite high.
That's high, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which not that I've studied the expert sections every round intently, but the jump is quite large, isn't it? I know you've got a minder and everything if you want it with Trial 2, but it is quite a big step to make up that gap then, isn't it?
Yeah,
but then
and equally it's difficult to mark those sections out, Hugo, as well.
Yeah, no, I know that too well. Yeah,
the end, the one of the big difficulties with the championship, basically the begins card and the ends card is the same place for all 3 routes, and trying to get from A to B is not easy for the clerks of the courses, really.
No. I think unless you put an event on as well, you don't realise how hard it is to find the 3 standards of sections between the same start and ends either, do you?
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's a big. I mean, I'm sure it's the same as sort of club trials in on the mainland as well. But here we have 5 lines, and trying to find an area in a venue where you get 5 sort of half decent lines for all the grades is almost impossible. Yeah, I think they're going to have to think about maybe splitting it into like an expert championship and a clubman championship over here before very long, because it's just becoming almost impossible for the clubs to find suitable venues for both.
They've had to say that in the Welsh Championship as well. There was probably like 6 classes at one point and like so many different routes, and now it got too complicated and everyone stopped really caring for it, so they've gone back to 3 routes and just have, like Brian was saying, you've split them up, so like 3 easy, 3 medium, 3 hard for that grade, and then it simplifies it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's not easy. So the Trial GB class itself, then you have, I suppose, sort of reinvigorated that as well, because that was was there 3 riders in that? I think the first.
No, I think when I took it on, it wasn't so bad actually. But then, like, Dibs fell by the wayside. Then we lost Jack Price, and bloody Enduros doesn't help because everybody goes off there. But such a difficult class to accommodate. And to be fair to riders, if you're not good enough to be in the class, it's difficult. I mean, I think when you were in it, Hugo, there were 9 or 10 or more riders then.
Yeah, at some point there was, I think, can't remember what, it might have been 2018. There was a good like 15 or so in it at some rounds.
Yeah.
And then gradually up from like then till 2020, it just drip fed down to Trial 2. And there's not really left to compete with anyone anymore because the full-time guys are on another level. So that's just almost become the Trial 2 group, isn't it?
Yeah, the gap got bigger, to be fair, didn't it? That's the trouble.
It did,
right? Trial GP World Championships moved up a notch, and unless you were a full-time rider that you could go with that, you know, it was difficult.
And that's what that class should be, isn't it? It should be trying to push them guys and have that level that they need for the world rounds, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it needs. I mean, that's what it is, isn't it? Essentially, it's a stepping stone to the next level. Right. We're nearly out of time with this part of the meeting, so we'll take a quick break there. Trial GB being a stepping stone, into the World Championships, and I think probably the biggest legacy at the moment anyway, Brian, that you'll probably leave behind is, I think the ACU, the Trial GB, has created more British world champions, and I think that's maybe not directly but indirectly as a result of the British Championship and the competition that you've instilled there.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's right, actually. It's that we've got a good group of riders at the moment who are prepared to work hard at it, got the skill levels and that. And the ACU TrialGB is just a very small part of where they can show off their skills, bit of confidence, and be in the big time of a series. But no, the riders we've got now and the ones coming through are a talent in their own right.
But do you not think that's part of the inspiration? Because I know it's difficult sometimes as a rider to sort of stay motivated and keep trying to push your level and your level of practicing and everything else. I think that's part of what you've sort of set up there.
Yeah, if I had to use an example on that, it'll be one that surprises you, actually. If what you said was anywhere near what I believe to be true, I would use Jamie Galloway as the example there. Right through from Trial 125, nice guy, nice family, gets about the job, improved massively, really. But then on the other end of the scale, you got like the Hemingways and that, who I got so much respect for them. I showed that on the podium presentations, but it's just the work and the effort that they've put in and what the family have done for them as well. So that's the two sides of the story, really.
Yeah. Well, I know that that's reciprocated, certainly from the Hemingways to yourself. And I know that I don't know if you watched the episode that I did with the Hemos, but Dan certainly said that was probably the best thing, that whenever you sort of tried to talk them into bringing George into the Trial 125 Championship, that was sort of what gave him that sort of step up, if you like, into the sort of more adult level of competition.
Yeah, but the skill levels,
I mean, it's off the chart.
Yeah.
Just an incredibly annoyingly talented family, aren't they? At everything they do mountain biking, skiing, it doesn't matter. They're just they're good at everything.
But that's not with luck. That's with hard work, dedication, and that, really.
Yeah.
Hugo knows how much you have to put into it to be. Hugo finished well up in Trial 2 this year, 5th.
Yeah.
And like that's a hell of an achievement.
Yeah.
In fact, Hugo, you would have been the best rider not to be doing trial GPs.
You're on mute.
You just need to say yes.
Oh, it was only a matter of time before that happened.
How's that?
That's it. You're back in the room.
So, don't know what, it didn't work properly when I joined this one, but yeah, thank you, Brian. I did hear what you were saying, and it does. The amount of training, like we were just saying, Russell, you're in the gym a few times a week. You're trying to ride as often as you can, and you're working and stuff. You do have to put a lot of time in, but I think that's part of what makes you trials is a bit of an addiction, isn't it? So
yeah,
once you're into it, you can't stop trying to just get them little improvements. Probably everyone will tell you that.
It gets under your skin. I think it's like anything. I mean, it's like the same. You know, you watch those guys that ride at the TT or the road races over here, and you think,
Yeah,
why would you ever want to do that? You know, but I think once you've done it, it's, you know, it's like a drug. It's obviously very addictive. There's a few road racers actually over here, very very good trials riders too. Jeremy McWilliams is he actually rides trials now over here with his son, which is, it's good to see the two of them running. Really, they have a bit of crack. Yes, as you were saying there, Hugo. Yeah, you sort of, you put the effort in to get the results out, and I think if
yeah,
competitive grade like Trial 2, well, all the classes in the British Championship are super competitive. But when you know that little extra bit of work is going to maybe give you a couple of places in the results, that's where the motivation to do that comes from. Which is why we do it.
It's whatever you do, if it's raining and you think, oh, I'm going to go out on the road bike today, or I'm going to go riding even because it's raining, you think, oh, you just get a little bit of an edge on someone who's not doing it. That's where a lot of it comes from, I think.
Yeah. I took the day off work tomorrow. I'm going out on the bike. Practice preparation has started. So, roll on, May. I haven't actually.
Sorry, I was just going to say one thing that's almost motivated me more in recent years is knowing that the standard of trial, like British Championships, are going to be as good as they've been as well. So it's a credit to you, Brian, and all the clubs you work with, to be fair. Makes you want to put more effort in.
It's the clubs that do the groundwork. You know, let's not make any mistake about that. So
yeah. And I think certainly at the events I was at this year, the amount of work put in by the clubs, particularly actually I'll say Neen Valley there for that final round, the amount of clearing and stuff that had been done there, you know, that just doesn't happen overnight. You know, so yeah, fair play. And it turned out a good trial.
It was about 18 months ago when I first visited there to check it out, and you couldn't see some of the sections as you walk through there, and they've been there constantly. I think they started in March this year, a team of them, cutting out and that. A huge effort to do that, But again, the same problem, trying to get expert sections and GB sections there, the same place on those steep hillsides, not an easy thing to do. They've learned a lot from it as well. I can promise you I think there'll be another one there in the next year or the year after. It'll be a hell of a lot better again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was talking to one of the guys, I can't remember his name, and they were saying that basically what they're going to do is they're going to do a working party once a month, every month, and clear different areas there. So, I mean, that's what you want. You know, a club that's prepared to put the effort and the time in like that's fantastic.
You can see what I was meaning though. Sorry, you can see what I was meaning when I kept describing it as a quarry, or it was a quarry, but it's not like a quarry, is it?
No. It was man-made, but it was really natural looking. It was, I thought it was terrific trial. But all the rounds I was at this year were all excellent. Inch perfect, maybe a bit on the hard side, but again, it was a relatively new venue there for them, you know, or a new sort of idea for them to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was a bad round this year.
Yeah,
at all from my point of view.
Yeah, no, all good. Right, have you anything more to ask, Brian?
No, I'm quite happy. I just hope it continues now. ACU been a little bit slow in picking it up and what they're going to do, but I understand they're on the move now. You might know more than me, actually. And I don't know. I've stayed out of what's going to happen specifically for them to make the right decisions, and I'm sure it will. But they just need to get it going and get the dates announced and let people know what's happening now. That's what it comes down to. And they'll still get my support. And I'm still going to be at some of the rounds anyway. Di and I love going to it, but without it's not the pressure, but it's the getting up the early mornings and all that sort of thing. We just want to rock up and watch a few sections, like, really.
That's it. You'll be able to go along and enjoy them now.
Yeah. Well, no, don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed what I've done.
Yeah.
It's been enjoyable, and there's some really nice people that I've worked with, really, really nice people, which makes it better. And yeah, we've enjoyed it over 5 years, but we've done what we can, and somebody needs to move it on to another level now. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Is there a successor lined up? Not that we don't have to name names, but is there someone lined up to take over, Brian? Or?
Well, I don't get involved very much. They had one lined up until about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and because it was slow progression, that organizer or that team pulled out. But I think they're working hard at the moment to get it going again and watch this space, basically.
I hope so. Yeah, be a shame for it to slip back to how it was a few years ago. It'd be good if it could be, like you say, carry it on and build it. Carry on building.
I've given them a list of all the jobs I've got. You can't read it on screen, but a list there of all the things that we do to get it going and that, and they've had that, and they can pass it on to other people, whether they decide to use that system or something else. But the information's there, really.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it would be a shame if it takes a step back, but fingers crossed that won't happen, and the good work that you've managed to do, and along with the clubs, as you rightly say, Brian, over the last few years, it is given the opportunity to continue. I think probably Hugo and I would speak on behalf of just about every rider in the TrialGB series when we say that you've done a fantastic job. You've put the series sort of back on the map, so to speak. And you can only be congratulated for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
It means a lot when you guys say it, but as you say, a lot of people have said it at the end of the last round. They did as well. But there's still plenty of room for improvement, miles of room for improvement. But we got some good sponsors as well. I think Talon are still on board for next year. They're going to stick with it. So there's a good base to start with.
That's
good.
Yeah. Right. Well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Interesting. It's interesting to hear about your history as well, Brian. To be honest, didn't know half the things you'd done, so that was interesting too.
That's right.
Thanks for
that. Before we go, tell us your Scott trial history, Brian. Tell us your Scott trial history.
Crashes. First year, I was on a twin shock machine. Got to Underbanks on the way back. Banked a shock absorber. I didn't know what to do. I was going to carry on. My old man took it off, whacked it against a rock, straightened it, and it worked to get to the end, which was another hour riding or hour and a half riding, I guess. But then I've probably done it 5 or 6 times and got 4 spoons.
Wow.
4 Scott spoons, very hot. I'm jealous. I can't even get a finish.
Yeah, me. I don't want to talk about spoons being one place off this year.
Oh, you were unlucky this year. Right, Brian, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. As always, if you're watching, please give us a like, give us a subscribe. And we have, hopefully, in the next week or so, we have Billy Green, Trial 2 World Champion, coming on for the next episode. So that's all to look forward to. But that's all for now. So again, Brian, thank you very much indeed.
Cheers, Brian.
Cheers.